Okay, so let's get started writing our first Java program. To do this, the software that I want you guys to use in this class that's already installed on these computers is called NetBeans. Okay? Now, there are lots of different programs you can use to write Java software. But let's launch this program. So the easiest way to launch it is to just click your Start button and start typing NetBeans. Even if you just type N-E-T, chances are NetBeans will pop up. Now, your computer, very much like mine, may have two versions of this software installed. One is version 7 and one is version 7.3. NetBeans is constantly updating, and actually 7.3 isn't the latest version either. The thing is, here at the school, we try to keep it up to date, but updating 30 computers all the time is a bit of a challenge. So I would recommend you use the newer version. That's always better. And the other thing about NetBeans is you can get this software at home for free. It is not software they charge for. This software is 100% free and always will be free. So let's get it started. I can see a lot of you already have started NetBeans. So I'm going to launch mine. Okay, like C#, the nice thing about NetBeans, it'll remember previous work when you've worked on, so I know it's going to be blank for you guys right now because you haven't started a project in NetBeans. But when you've started one, like the next time you go to use NetBeans, it'll be there sitting there in recent projects, so it's not hard to find your stuff. Also, like C#, when you save a project in NetBeans, it'll make its own folder for it. So it'll organize all the files in the folder for you. So it's not like Microsoft Word where you could accidentally overwrite it by always calling it document 1. It's going to make its own folder and store everything in its own folder. Okay, so what you guys probably saw when you launched it is this, the opening screen. Okay, just an opening splash screen. And this is the environment that we're going to write the Java code in. Now, before we get too far into this, right away it's going to look different than C# in the sense that when you started C#, it would automatically build that little window for you in a graphical environment so you could see what you were about to look at. So it's more what they call a WYSIWYG environment. What you see is what you get. But we're not going to start that way in NetBeans or in Java. We can do something almost identical to that. But we're going to do that later in the course. Where we're going to start in NetBeans is in pure code environment. As a matter of fact, we're going to start with just a blank piece of code. No code on it whatsoever. And we're going to write all the code to get started. Okay? Later on, as we move from unit to unit, you're going to do less and less of that because you'll be automating some of the code automatically. Not all of it. You'll still be writing lots of code, but some of the basics will be automated for you. But I think it'll give you a real deep understanding of what the NetBeans environment does if we get started that way. Okay? Now, just real brief. A lot of this is in my PowerPoint slideshow as well, where it talks about creating your first Java application. And I'm just showing you this so you know it's in the notes if you need it. So this thing called NetBeans is called an Integrated Development Environment, or IDE. That's what IDE stands for, right? So IDE is a place where you can write code and format the code. And that's what C# or Microsoft C# did as well. It wrote the code for you and it formatted the code for you. Okay? Some of the pictures from my slideshow, as you can see, are old. This is back from version 5 of NetBeans. Okay? But it's still the same software. NetBeans actually comes from the same company originally that developed Java. I'd give a prize if anyone can remember that from yesterday's presentation. Sun Microsystems, which happened to have been bought out, by the way. It's now owned by Oracle. You may have heard of them. They do a lot of networking stuff. And in my notes, it walks through the process that I'm about to walk through with you guys, how to set up a project, how to build a project, and add files to the project. But I'm not going to just show you this through a slideshow. I'm going to have you guys do it. I'm just putting it up here on the screen right now to know you, so you know that it's there as a reference for you if you need it. That all this is in my notes, walks through the process of getting started and setting up your first Java application. Okay? And then some of the restrictions that go with that. So, okay. So, let's do this live. So in NetBeans, we're going to create a new project, and you can do this by going File, New Project, or if you don't want to do that, you can also click this button right here, which does the same thing. So this button right here, what is that, manila colored button here? Come on, my computer's so sluggish there. This button right, come on. That button creates a new project. And you have to set up a project first. A project is going to make a folder for you, and it's going to organize all your stuff in that folder. Okay? The first part of this course, you're just going to be writing one code file, and it's going to go into that folder, along with some other files that it manages for you. But by the end of this course, chances are you're going to have multiple files, all in the same project. This is similar to in grade 10, you would start with one form, and then maybe by the end of grade 10, you had multiple forms. Okay? In this class, it's going to be one class, and then multiple classes at the end. Okay, so here's NetBeans starting project scenario. NetBeans can be used to make other things other than, say, Java files. It can also make web page files. It can make C++ files. But by default, what we want it to do is what's already set here. We want to make a Java, that's right, and then over on this side, application is the correct. So it's a Java app. An application is just a program. So this is correct. So the settings by default were right. And you go next. And here, just like last year, is probably the most important part, where you're going to put it. Not so much for me. I don't care where you guys put your work, but you need to find your work each time you want to hand something in or continue working on it. So this part right here, where you're going to put this project, that's important. Okay? Taking the time to identify a place. Now, it'll probably remember so that each time you do this, you don't have to keep doing this in any great detail. But right here, you set where it's going to go and what it's going to be called. Does anyone remember what I said last year is good luck when you write a first program? Anyone remember? There's a traditional two-word hello world, right? So that's what I'm going to call mine for good luck for this course. I'm going to call mine hello world. That's going to be the name of my project. And for today, I'm going to suggest that you uncheck this check mark right here. Okay? If you already went to next, that's not a big deal, but I'm going to recommend you uncheck create main class just for today. In the future, you can leave it checked off. But today, uncheck that. Okay, so does anyone have any questions? We've set a location right here for where the project's going to be saved, and you can use that browse button to go specifically to the place you want to save it. Computer's very sluggish this morning. And you've given it a name, and you've unchecked create main class. When that's all done, hit finish. Takes a second, starts building the project. Okay? So what it's doing right now is it's making a folder somewhere where you told it to make it. It's putting some files in there. Very much like C#. There's a bunch of files you don't have to worry about. And even some subfolders that you don't have to worry about. But there is going to be at least one file that you do have to obviously work on. But it's making a build folder. It's building it up for you. It's putting stuff in there. It's probably going to be faster than mine. Mine's very sluggish. I'm not sure what's going on with the computer itself this morning. Okay, so now what you guys will see is now that your project's up and running, okay, or up and built, now that it's here, it'll still have this sort of opening screen. But if you had been working on previous projects, they will be loaded up along this side here. Now this is a little bit different than C#, because in C#, the projects were listed on the right-hand side. So it's just flipped the side, but this is sort of keeps track of your projects. Now, obviously, you guys' will be empty. Mine has two in there because these are two projects that yours will have one in there, and mine has two because it has one project that I was working on previously. So I'm going to close that project. Here's the Hello World project that I just set up. Okay? Don't worry about these little folders inside it. But does anyone notice here as I zoom in, the little icon they used? Do you recognize what that is? Yeah, it's a coffee cup, right, for Java. So they like that theme, just so you know, the coffee cup theme in Java. Okay, so now what we need to do is we need to add a file to this project. And again, normally this can be done for you, automated for you, but today I wanted to do it manually. So to add a file to your project, you can go up to File, New File, or you can click the button beside the one that we clicked before, this button right. Sorry, this computer is a little bit slow. This button right there. That'll create a new file for your project. Okay, so up comes another dialog box that says, okay, you want to add a file to your project. What kind of file do you want? And again, a very large list of different things you can add to your project. But what we're going to add is a Java file. And what I want you guys to add is a Java empty Java file. And this is basically the only day you're going to add it as an empty file. Because in the future, you're going to have it automate some of that stuff for you, right? Like you'll notice at the very top of that list, it says Java class. These are more likely the things you're going to be adding in the future as you start getting more used to this. For today, we're going to build this right from the ground up with just an empty file. So it's basically like a blank notepad or blank Word file. It's just a blank place to put code. So go ahead and then click Next. And now comes the part where you name it. Now here is somewhere where you got to spend just a second to explain that it's putting this file into your project. And you're going to give it a name, which sounds like a simple thing. But here right away, I want to start going over naming rules. And they're very similar to stuff you learned in grade 10. What do you remember about naming things like variables or method or anything in grade 10? Well, you may recall that one of the things that you should never do is put spaces in there. So if you're going to call something hello world, you can't go hello space world. Everything has to be with no spaces. You also can't use special characters like dashes or dots. There are a few special characters you can use, like underscores are okay. But generally, you stay away from those things. So who remembers, what's a way we can separate the words hello and world without a space? How? Right, and who remembers what that was called? Camel casing, that's right, because like a camel, creates that hump-like effect. And that's exactly what we're going to do here. But, here's a big thing. When you name this thing, and what this thing is, by the way, is a class, it should start with a capital letter. And that's slightly different than I taught you last year. It still uses camel casing, but it'll start in a capital letter. And as a matter of fact, when things start in a capital letter in Java, that tells you that it's a class. So that's the way Java works. So if we make sure our code follows that same format, you guys will get used to that quickly. So if it starts in a capital letter, it's a class. And what are the two things that classes are composed of? Properties and methods. So all that theory will start to make sense as we start to, that's why I'm trying to reinforce it with you guys. So anyways, I'm going to call mine hello world in that style that I just described to you. HELLOWORLD, but the capital is on the H and the capital is on the W. And then I hit finish. Okay? And all that work has just taken us to here. A blank piece of code ready for writing, or ready for typing, to be more specific. Okay? Now, yours probably has these project folders out to the side, locked on, and you probably have one called the Navigator that's also locked on the side, and stuff like that, which is fine. These are great. These little side windows will help you organize stuff, but you don't need them necessarily to be there. So as a coder, you can organize your workspace as well. You can have these side windows sort of docked on the side if you want, and you could do something like that with C# as well. It's a little bit different, but it's the same concept as however you want to work in your code. A little bit of keyboard shortcut if you're interested. If you want to zoom in and out on your code, hold Alt and scroll your mouse wheel. Okay, that's a little bit different than C# where you had to hold Control. And this is a new feature in NetBeans. This is a feature that just came into play. I don't know why it took them so long to get that feature up, but if you hold Alt and roll your mouse, it'll zoom in and out on your code. That can be handy, okay? Okay, so let's type some code. Let's get going. I'm going to leave one line just as a spacer, just for me. And the very first word we're going to type in lowercase letters is the word class, okay? Remember I said how important that word is? It popped in blue. Who remembers what a word in blue usually signifies? What does that mean? Why would a code word appear in bluish color, not black? It's what? Kind of the right idea, yeah. A word in blue is what's called a reserved word. It's a word that has special meaning, which means you can't call something that. Like you'll find the word if will appear in blue, right? That's because you can't name something if, because that word has been reserved for special meaning. And that's what class is. Class means, okay, this is about to classify this whole piece of code. And what do I call it now? Well, we've actually already given it a name. What you have to put next is the exact same name you gave the file when you saved it. In my case, I called it Hello World, like that. Now again, this word right here has to match the same name as the file you saved it as. And if you forgot, it's right here, up on this tab right here. So this and this have to match exactly. They have to be the exact same upper lowercase spelling, everything has to be the same. Okay, then after that, you put the traditional curly brackets. The opening curly bracket will appear, and when you hit enter, NetBeans will fill in the closing bracket for you. That's just to help you keep organized. So remember, curly braces are used as the structure to hold everything together. So they define when something begins and ends. So this is saying, here's where the class begins, and here's where the class ends. They structure your code. Now, where you put that opening curly brace is entirely up to you and the style that you'd like to work with. If you want to go with what C# did, which is to put the brace here on its own line, you can do that. That's fine. I'm perfectly okay with that. That's a great style of coding. And notice how it's nice because they line up real nice. Also, you may notice when you're right beside it, NetBeans will highlight them for you so you can figure out which one matches the other one. Okay? That's a nice feature in NetBeans as well. But you can also, if you want to save a little bit of space, I'm okay with you guys putting the opening brace on the same line as the words class hello world. That's also a good style. What I would ask as you guys are learning style of coding this year is not that I'm going to be that picky about which style you pick, but what I'd like you to do is be consistent and use the same style throughout. So if you're going to put the brace there, do that for the whole program, right? Don't keep switching back and forth because it gets a little confusing. Anyways, I'm going to go with the C# style there. Now, you'll notice when you go in between the braces in here, the code will automatically indent you one indent space. That's that style that you may remember from last year, that programmers use indents to help kind of create a style to their code, which hopefully will make it easier to read later. Okay, so we've defined a class. What we now need to define inside the class is a method. Remember what a method is? A method is something that can do something, because that's what we want this program to do. We want it to do something. And every single project in Java always has one method that has to be there. Absolutely has to be there. And it's called the main method. As a matter of fact, every programming language has to have that. The main method is something that's defined by programming languages as the place to get started. It even happened in C#, back in C#. It just hid it from you. But there was a main method in C# that launched that form that you created. It did a lot of that behind the scenes stuff for you. But here in Java, we're going to take care of that behind the scenes stuff. So we're going to write this method. We're going to start with the keyword public. Okay, notice again it's in blue. It's a keyword or a reserved word. Public just means that this method is available to everybody, like a public washroom. Then we're going to put the keyword static. I'm not going to go into too much detail what that word means, but it's very similar to the word public. It's about sharing sort of stuff. These words are called modifiers. Then we're going to put the word void. Okay? What's a void? Outside of the world of computer science, what does the word void mean? Nothing, that's right. Nothing is what this method gives back to you, believe it or not. Sort of like what my wife classifies me. Anyways, now we put the keyword main. Okay? This is even though it's not appearing in blue, the keyword main is known to Java as the place to get started. Okay. Then we're going to put a round bracket. It'll, by the way, whenever you use brackets in NetBeans, it'll put the closing one for you, just so that you don't forget. But we actually have to put something inside those two brackets. And I'm not going to go into too much detail as to what these next two words mean, because they'll have more meaning to you later in the course. You probably will have some idea what they mean. But the first word is string, and then the word args with two round brackets. Or sorry, two square brackets. Pardon my error there. Okay, so let me just close that up. So that's what we're looking at right there. Public static void main, string args, and then I want you to put two more brackets. Okay? So these brackets here create a structure, just like these two brackets here created a structure. Okay? They're building. It's like this outer one builds the house, and this one builds the room inside the house. Okay? And this is a method. Main is a method. This is the class out here. And that method is going to do something. That's what methods do. They do things. Okay? Now, I said we're going to ignore these two words. But I actually want to see if you guys are paying attention. Forget this word and those square brackets. Forget that. Focus on this word. You've seen that in grade 10. So you kind of know, I hope, what that means. A string is a collection of characters. But what do you notice about that word string? Not you. Something different about it than, say, the way it was in C#. It's not in blue, yes, that's right. But what else is different about it? A capital, you be quiet, a capital S. Now, let's see if you're paying attention. Because it begins in a capital S, what does that tell you about it? It's that one word again. It's a class, that's right. It's a class. So this is a class as well, and a class consists of properties and methods. So that string can do stuff, and there are properties with it. So those little subtle cues will become kind of important features as you get more and more used to coding in this environment. And again, this is what the grade 11 course is going a little bit deeper. I'm not going to make assumptions anymore with you guys in your coding. Like we did in grade 10, I would just go, oh, just write that code. Don't worry about it. It just works, right? Now I want you guys to have a bit more of a deeper understanding of all the pieces of the code itself. Okay, all that will build your first program. Doesn't actually do anything yet, but at least it's up. Now, before we make it do anything, at this point, we could actually test our program. And just like in C#, you can click this little play button up here. And it's up here on the toolbar, up there. That play button will actually play your program. So you can go ahead and click that right now. The first thing, it'll pop up a little dialog box that says, okay, we need to set a main class. So let me show you what I mean by that. Probably won't work on the first run. But let me just see what you guys are seeing. So I'm going to click play, and up pops this, and it says, wait a minute, there's no main classes here. We're messed up. Okay? So the problem is this word over here in the project side, the word hello world, it doesn't know that that's the main project. It doesn't know that yet. Now, it will, probably, the next time you launch NetBeans. So it's kind of a little bit behind the times right now. So sometimes we have to kind of work around the fact that it's not set up properly. And that was because we took a bit of a longer route to get here today. So what I want you to do is over here on the project side, I want you to right-click the words hello world. and go down and say run file. So if you right click here and go here to where it says run file, that should run your program. Now again, it won't do anything, but at least you'll know if your program can actually run. Run file. And what happens is as it starts to run your program, I know it's not a big clue, but there's a little indicator down here saying that it's trying to run it. Okay? And because this doesn't have a fancy user interface like we did in C#, all you're going to see is a little window is going to pop up and it's going to say build successful. That's good. That means your code had no errors. Our code had no errors because it really has nothing that it's doing yet at this point. But at least we know it could run. We built a Java program from the ground up with no help from NetBeans itself building a whole bunch of stuff for us. Okay, because we basically told it everything it needed to know. We said, here's a class, and you're Java, so you need a class. And here's the main method, because you need a main method. And a method is something it can do inside the class. Can you run this? Yes, I can. But now let's tell it to do something. We're going to tell it with a keyword. The keyword is system. Now notice where I've placed this word. I've placed it inside of main, so it's inside, ready to go. It's also indented. That's good style. But what do you notice about the word system? Capital letter. And capital letter tells you what? It's a class. And if it's a class, what is the two things that a class has? Properties and methods. And we access properties and methods by using a dot. So after system, put a dot. And here you'll start to see, just like C#, the autocomplete feature, or what sometimes is called IntelliSense, which tries to intelligently figure out what you're trying to do here. And it's got some nice features that are involved. So when you click on one of the words, not double click, but if you click on one, you'll also get little pop-up help windows sometimes like this. That'll actually be stuff where you can read about what that is. So it's like online help is flying out and trying to help you as you're moving along there. Okay, so I'm going to tell you what we're going to write. We're just going to put the word out. System.out. And remember, you don't have to type that whole word. As it pops up, you can just hit enter to complete the word automatically for you. So system.out dot, we're going to hit dot again, print, okay, and then a round bracket, like that. And we'll try to autocomplete a lot of this for you. Inside the round brackets, put a set of quotation marks, and in there, put some words, whatever you want to say. Okay, so I'm going to say this. Okay, so this is a basic output that we're going to try to do here. What we're saying is, I want you to take these words, and they know they're words because they're inside of quotation marks. And I want to take those words and I want you to print them. Now printing, as you would imagine, might go to an actual printer, but that's not what's going to happen here. It's going to say, well, where do you want me to print it? I want you to print it to out. Out meaning output. Output of what? Well, output of the system, the computer system. Well, if you're a computer and I said just spit this out, you would probably go to your default output device. And what do you think the default output device of a computer is? No, the screen. This goes right to the screen. It says, oh, you must want it on the screen. You want to probably see this, right? So the screen is the default output device. So it's just basically saying print it to the default output, which is the screen. So let's get ready for this super exciting program. Hit play. And if all is right in the universe, and now, by the way, notice when I actually hit the play button, now, and you guys could try this as well, now it might give you the right choice. And lo and behold, the words hello world appeared on our screen. Very exciting, I realize, compared to grade 10. Okay? Now, if you didn't get that to appear on your screen, go back to the project window and right-click and go Run File over here. Okay? If it didn't work that way. And that should hopefully work as well. Now, if it didn't work, you've probably got a bug. Like, let's say, for example, I forgot this quotation mark right there. Okay? So I forgot to close my quote. Well, NetBeans will try and catch that error two ways. One is it'll give you that red line and say, whoa, 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 something's wrong here. Second thing that'll probably happen is when you try to play it or try to run it, it'll probably tell you there's a mistake. And you could try to run it anyways, but it will probably then tell you again there's a mistake. So it tries various ways to give you a warning that something's wrong. And the problem is it's not great at telling you what's wrong. So you could try, for example, when you have an error, over on the side here, oops, it'll place a little exclamation point right there. And it'll say, whoa, 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 something's wrong right there. And if you put your mouse over that exclamation point, it might give you a little clue. Now the clue may not be that useful. It says unclosed string literal. Well, that may be useful to you. I don't know if you could interpret that as it's missing a quotation mark. Maybe it should have just said that, but it's trying its best to tell you what's wrong, okay? Now let's say that wasn't the error. Let's say I did have my closing quotation mark, but I forgot the round bracket right there. Now I have a different error. This time it says, this one, it did give me a more useful explanation. It says bracket expected. Oh, that really is helpful. So now I can kind of figure out, based on this line, that I'm missing a bracket. What if I was missing the semicolon? Which, by the way, I forgot to mention, that lines will end in semicolon. I just kind of assumed that from your grade 10 course. This time the error says semicolon expected, so that was very useful. Okay? Now let's say I forgot the word out in the middle here. If I just tried system.print. Well, it's going to give me a different error this time. Cannot find symbol. Method print. Okay? So it will try to give you useful information. But what's actually happening here is I'm traveling through this class to get to the method that I need to produce output. That's it. So let's do it again. System. And you're about to learn the most useful keyboard combination in Java. I don't remember how to spell system. Let's just say that's the case. Say I have the worst spelling ever. Autocomplete can be brought up quickly, even though I don't have pressed the dot or anything, by holding down the Control key and pressing the space bar. So Control space bar will automatically pop up the autocomplete for you. And it's sensitive to what you're typing. So for example, if I have nothing typed and I press Control space bar, there's lots of options there as to what I can type in. But the second I type a capital S, that list just got way smaller. And then when I type capital SY, now really I only have 4 things it could possibly be. One of which is system. And look, it even has some of them that says system.out. It may even, that's what I'm talking about when I say you will learn to automate a lot of these tasks as you get more used to it. So system can be automatically done. Students who use autocomplete in computer science will then, when they go back to other classes, start trying to do it in other classes. It's very much like on your phone, when you can get like autocomplete on your phone, although sometimes it can be really annoying, especially when you're trying to type a really good swear word and it changes it to, you know, something else. But nonetheless, that autocomplete can get you can get very comfortable using it and miss it when it's not there. So system.out.print, but this time, I don't want you to use print. I want you to use println. Slightly different, and say goodbye world. Or something like that. I don't actually care what you put. And the semicolon. Okay, so here's 2 lines of code that seem very similar. One says print, and one says println. Can you guess what the ln stands for? Line, right. So what's the difference? Well, we'll test it in a minute. Let's go back to the first line again. And I'm lazy, so I'm going to just copy and paste. And just say hello world again. So I'm going to say hello world, goodbye world, hello world. Hello world, goodbye world, hello world. Learn your copy paste if you haven't learned them. Very, very useful. Control C, Control V. And I'm going to play it. So there's my output. What is different about println to print? It's a subtle but simple difference. That's exactly right. If you just say print, it doesn't put a line break in. So notice I say print hello world, and it did. Then I said print goodbye world, and notice it just is right afterwards. But then when I said print goodbye world, I said print goodbye world and a line break. So that just means and a line break. So then it goes down to the next line before it says hello world. Subtle difference, I realize, and not that exciting, but it just shows you some of the coding techniques that you're going to start to pick up in this. Okay, and just wait till we get to graphics. There'll be more and more. Okay. But that's one way you can do it. Okay? Another way you can do it is in the middle, in between two quotation marks, you can put a special characters. Like, for example, how could I print a quote? Let's try that. I'm going to try a fourth line, and I'm going to say print. And how would I print a quote? So something you might imagine that would look like that, where it'd have 3 quotes. And it's almost impossible to type that because it just won't even let you. And it's going to give you an error. It's going to say, well, wait a minute. You can't do that. And it gives you a weird error that it's missing a round bracket, which is there. Because it's confused. Java's confused. It's like, well, wait a minute. You open the quote, then you close the quote, and then you open it and closed it again, and I don't understand what you mean there. So Java is confused. So sometimes, in order to do stuff like that, you have to use special characters. Oops. Okay? And the way to do a quotation mark is to put this slash and then the quotation mark. That slash right there is called an escape character. Because what it tells Java is, whoa, escape for a minute and put a quote there. Now, that's not that exciting. I don't know if you guys are ever going to need to put a quote inside of quotes. But there is some escape characters that are useful to you. So forget that line. Go back to your middle line, and in front of the G of goodbye world, put /n. And run your code. And tell me what you think /n does. Right there, /n. Can you figure out what it just did? That's right, /n means new line. So, for example, I could put 2 of those or 3 of those, /n/n/n, and it'll put a bunch of new lines into my output. Okay? Now, in front of the last one down here, put /t, and see if you can figure out what that one does. These are very simple, subtle things. Let's just see if you can figure out what that does. So /n is a new line. /t, tab, right, tab, T, tab, indent, yes. You guys are on the right track, yeah. So it just indented 1 tab space, that. Wow, is this exciting course or what? You're learning how to make new lines and tabs. Aren't you glad you signed up for grade 11? Trust me, it gets better. Okay, one last thing today, and then we're going to wrap. System. Okay, you type system again. But not .out, .exit, and then inside the brackets, a 0. This line of code, system.exit bracket 0, is not one that you're going to necessarily need, but all that line does is it shuts everything down. It shuts the program down. It's very much like in C#, we use the line application.exit. This is basically the same thing, okay? It's just shutting off the program at this point, which, by the way, you wouldn't have had to do because once it got through these 3 lines of code, Java would have recognized that there was nothing left to do, and it would have shut down. But eventually, you guys are going to get into programs that have loops and that have timers and things like that where stuff is running all the time, and you'll need a way to shut it down. Well, so that's why I like to teach that line of code early. That's a way that shuts everything off when you need to, okay? Okay, that's the basics. with one exception that I was going to try to teach today, but I think I'll do it over the next couple days, which is how to do comments in Java. And the reality is it's exactly the same as the way you do comments in C#, but I'll review that with you guys. But that's the basics of Java programming, okay? Now, before you go and down to the guidance counselors and cancel this course because it's going to be incredibly boring this year, like I said, I'm building a foundation with you guys. Okay, I realize this program is extremely boring compared to the stuff you were doing by the end of grade 10. But I just want to give you a look ahead at things to come real quick. Okay? Eventually, as we build through the units, we're going to get to the point where you still can add new files. But this time you're going to add what are called GUI or graphic files to your program. You're going to name them. You're going to finish them off. A lot of this stuff's going to be automated for you. By clicking and punching in some code, you're going to get interfaces very similar to what you saw in C# last year. You're going to be able to drag buttons on. You're going to be able to drag text on. You're going to be able to drag all kinds of different things like scroll bars and other types of objects onto a design thing. Code is going to be written for you automatically. You'll have a better understanding what that code means as that code gets written for you. Okay? So it will get you to the same place as you were. That's a look ahead. We are going to definitely get there. So by the time you get to your final project, yes, that kind of stuff will occur. Plus, you'll have a deeper understanding of what's going on. But also, there's something else that's way different about working in Java. Okay? I'm just going to see if I can get this to work. Is the programs you write will work on Mac and PC and other environments, which didn't happen with C# because it was just running within Microsoft Windows. So the portability factor of this code increases as well.